Welcome to section 2. Again, if you need to get a drink of water, if you need to have a sip of coffee, if you need to stand up and you need to stretch, please do so. I want you to be as comfortable and ready for learning as possible. So feel free to just take a moment to recharge yourself, and I'll get into the product and we'll get started. So continue to refresh yourself while I talk. One of the first things that we're going to discuss within Unify desktop is getting around, navigating, showing you all the cool stuff, how to get in and out and around the product. So we'll go over some main headings, how to add extra stores, how to access the configuration, and things like that. All right, so we're back in the product. First thing, one of the cool things about this, if you ever are unsure of what is your login will always be here at the top. Let's say you're submitting a support question and let's say you're calling into support and they want to know what version of Unify Desktop you have. The Unify Desktop version will always be right up here. So I'm on 5912. That's really important that you know what version you're on, especially if you have multiple users. Want to make sure all your user machines are on the same version. That allows communication seamlessly between different users on the network. So that's really, really, really important there. All right. Another thing, we're going to talk about some of these headings up here. First off, current store. As you know, you can toggle between all of your stores. And the configuration, as you know, can be set between all of your stores. Now, if you ever want to go to another store, just click on the toggle and pop into another store. You can use it in the same exact way. Nothing changes at all in terms of the view, just the store and what in the data you're manifesting. Another cool thing is if you ever have to access the configuration, of course you go to File, Configure Store, and that pops you into the configuration, an area that we were just in. Now, let's say you have multiple online stores integrated, kind of like I do, and you want to, let's say you want to add a new store because you're doing really successful and you're like, oh, I got another store to add. So you go to File and Manage Stores. This is where you see your spread of stores. This is how many stores you have. I see you have 20 and I've got 13 out of 20 active. So yes, this is where you will, let's say, add a new store if you need to. And then goes through the Add Store wizard. This is very similar to kind of what you dealt with in Unify when you added your initial store, but it's slightly different in terms of look and feel. However, the progression with it is exactly the same in terms of this Add Store wizard there. So this is what you do if you need to add new stores. If you want to remove a store, you can, hitting the remove button. If you're looking at your stores like this and you want to go right to the configuration, just hit configure. Edit connection allows you to adjust information. So for example, let's say you updated your Shopify email address or login information. This is where you would modify that information here. You get that access token just to make sure we can log in smoothly. And so, that's one thing that's really good to remember off the bat. If you're changing your passwords in any of your online shopping carts, it's really, really important that you adjust that new password in the File, Manage Stores, and Edit Connection area. I cannot stress that enough. It's going to be really cumbersome if you aren't able to, Unify connects and is able to capture information or exchange data between the online store and itself, and it does that through an authentication token, and that authentication token happens to contain your login and your password. So if your password is changed, you've adjusted the token, and in order for our product to continuously download orders or post to stores, send tracking information, it's really important that you keep your passwords updated and you have to change them in 2 places. So that's one thing to keep in mind. This is very, very important. All right, so that is kind of around. If you ever wanted to quickly pop into your account here, into your customer portal account for some odd reason, you click on this Manage Account and it'll open it right in your browser. If it's your first time within your customer portal account, there is a video kind of showing you how to get around and all the different elements of it. I think it's great. You can change and update your passwords. If you have add-on users or additional professional users of Unify Desktop. You can add their logins and passwords. You can see when they last logged in within there. So, of course, you can see your billing and your receipts, and also download any store modules you need if you're connecting to particular stores that way. So take a look at that video. It shows you how to log into Unify, but the bulk of the video really is a tour of the customer portal. So feel free to watch the video and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. All right, so the next thing we're going to shift to is the inbox. Okay, more navigating around Unified Desktop and locking in. Now we're going to kind of talk about this, but in context of the order fulfillment process. So as you can see, this is a little bit different from the inbox area or the new sale or the sales area, quote unquote, in Unify. It kind of displays information exactly the same, but within Unify Desktop, you actually get more choices to display. So right now you're looking at, of course you can see the order number, date, customer number, amount, Unify status. What that is the order status. So the order status of that order within the online sales channel at the time that order was downloaded by Unify Desktop. So that's what that Unify status means. Of course, payment, that's our questions. Mark is paid? No. Process payment? No. Mark is paid. Process shipping? No. Or yes, So as you can see, I've said yes under process shipping, so all these are unshipped. This is closed. As you can see, it's already shipped out, as it should be. And as you know, my closed status orders pop in as paid and shipped because they're already done. This QB column. It denotes whether or not the transaction is created in QuickBooks. And here's actually one of the cool things of Unified Desktop. I find this to be one of the most amazing, best, coolest features you will ever see and ever do. So as you know, it's really hard to search a transaction in QuickBooks. Sometimes it can just be a big old headache and you're like, what do I do? Where do I go? Oh my gosh, here's this one. Okay, do I go backwards? It just gets super annoying. So one of the cool things about Unified Desktop that I particularly like is that you can automatically retrieve a transaction. So you see how this one has in the QB column, you see this check mark here. If I double click on that check mark, I can retrieve the sales receipt or the transaction created in QuickBooks. That by far is the coolest thing. So you can really see, and this is really one of the really cool points of being on Unified Desktop and integrating with QuickBooks Desktop. This is how deep the connection is, and this is how close the connection is. You can do that. If you're using QuickBooks Point of Sale, unfortunately that option is not available to you, but you are able to, as you know, we do put the transaction details. So if I'm going to double click on this order, I can see the transaction details. Here's my sales receipt and the sales receipt number. If you're on point of sale, you can put that in your history, and when you search your transaction history, and you'll see your transaction pop in there. So you can always find it. It isn't as dynamic as using QuickBooks Desktop, but hey, you've got the information and you can take action. So now that we're looking at the order detail here, we can see this is how the data starts in your online shopping cart, but also gets into Unified Desktop. So as you can see, here's your SKU, product name, options, quantity, weight, price, amount, shipping status, is it taxable? Now these are these other data points that are super important too. Shipping and handling. If you are on Shopify and you want Unify to handle the payment processor fees, if you're using Shopify payments, it will have this here, and that's also a data point. You can find that within your discounts area as to getting that data point in there. So this is all the bits of information that Unify gets from the online shopping cart. Now again, here's the customer information. So even if you're using a standard customer, this customer information will still show up on the transaction in the sold to area. It'll just have this customer information be, let's say, my online store orders. Ta-da! Um, so that's an important feature there in terms of continuity. So here's all the customer information. Again, here's the history of the order if you want to find out the paper trail. If you are utilizing this with multi-users, you guys can put notes here, instructions, or anything like that for your other team members as they're fulfilling. So that's a really cool feature here. Since this is the inbox, if you wanted to display other information, here's all the information that can be displayed. So your add-on user, they can utilize this if you're shipping, like here's a tracking ID. Here is the currency, if you will. Here's the packing slip. I know this is a good one for shipping teams. Number of shipments. This is also a good one. Shipping method requested. This one's perfect. A lot of shipping teams use this one. Shipping method requested, ship to state, things like that. I think those are really important for shipping departments there. Now let's talk about order fulfillment. So as you can see, we've got these buttons here: process shipping, post to QuickBooks, retrieve tracking ID, post to store and archive. Each one of these things does different things. I'll take you through. So process shipping, that takes you to the shipping module. We'll come to that in a minute. Post to QuickBooks does exactly what it says. It takes this order here, and if I click it and I go post to QuickBooks, it will create a transaction just like I talked about before, and it will have a check mark here in the QB tab. Boom. Retrieve tracking ID. Now this is a special thing. If you're using QuickBooks Shipment Manager with invoices, you can calibrate or set up or configure how Unify will retrieve that tracking information from that invoice or from that transaction in QuickBooks, and then of course we post to store. Now post to store is a bit of a twofold feature. First off, there is a function of sending the tracking ID to the online store. That's one. And then the second is notifying the customer, changing the status of that order to reflect its shipping status. So we have three elements. In post to store, Unify can do 2 out of the 3 things. And let's go into the configuration, and I can show you how something is posting to store. So go to File, Configure Store, and then we're going to go to the Orders area, and then we're going to go to the Order Processing tab. So I'll give you guys a moment to get there. Okay, so here is where we have post to store settings. Now that we know in the context of what it's doing, this area is really more applicable to you, which is why I'm showing it to you at this time. Under post to store, now we know that, okay, we want Unify to post to store, we want it to send the tracking ID. Cool, we got that. We can do that. The second thing is changing the order status to reflect the fact that it's shipping. Sure, we can do that too. Those are the 2 things that are absolutely primary to posting to store. However, sending this order completion back to the store, Unify isn't notifying the customer. Unify is triggering the online store to notify the customer based on the change in order status, which Unify says this is what it will be when it posts to store and sends the tracking information and attaches that to the order. So again, sending the order completion email, you really need to see what status you're using in your online store and have you set that up in your online store. So for example, in my Shopify store, I'm downloading the orders at the open status. If the order status goes to closed, have I in Shopify said, okay, if an online order status goes to closed, I want you to send an email to the customer and put it in the archive within Shopify. Boom. If that's the trigger that does those 2 things, then that is what you want to do and what you want to have for the post to store. So that's super important to understand and know in terms of the order fulfillment process and what Unified Desktop is able to do versus what Unified Desktop is able to trigger the online store to carry out. The archive is really just kind of a bucket that holds old stuff you don't need. Rather than deleting the order, so let's say the order is paid, it has been shipped out, you've posted it to store, you've posted it to QuickBooks, and it doesn't need to sit in the stacks in the inbox. You can send that to the archive. And the archive, all the orders in the archive can be viewed within the archive tab. When it's in the archive tab, you do anything with it. You can see it, you can view it, you can see the transaction in it. So you can do a lot of stuff in the archive tab. You can also, say, oops, this doesn't need to be, this was put in the archive too early. I need to move that back to the inbox. You can move that back to the inbox. Now, if you know if the order has shipped out, post to store, post to QuickBooks, it needs to go right to the archive. In the orders menu heading here, you can choose, let's see, rules, and then let's go to archive rules. You could say, yes, put things in there automatically. When? What action? What's your final action? Post to QuickBooks and store? Or I usually like to go, look, if it's in QuickBooks, it's finalized, boom. Keep it simple. You could do any one of these order fulfillment things in whatever order you want. But, for example, if you're downloading orders and then posting to QuickBooks and then doing shipping, then you may not want it to happen there. You may want it to go into the archive when you process the shipment. So really, this is about order fulfillment. How are you fulfilling? Where does Unify do what? This is super important in regards to assessing that. And of course, definitely regard that. Let me talk a little bit about some of these tabs. All these tabs are self-explanatory. Dashboard is your dashboard. Inbox is your inbox that we were just at. Archived is where the old orders go. Errors, if you have errors, they'll pop in there. If you have any canceled orders, they'll go in there. If you've deleted any orders, they'll go in the trash. Now, ignored orders. This is a special area. So remember when we were in the configuration? Let's go there here, or you don't have to go there. You can stay on the ignored tab if you'd like. I'll walk you through this part. Remember when we were in the orders area? And this is kind of where look at number 2, how to handle orders that are not processed with Unify. This means how to handle everything that's not checked. Anything that's unchecked, well, what to do with it? Well, do I not download it or put it in the ignore tab? That's what the ignore tab is. The ignore tab is the inverse of the inbox. So if you got orders that Unify isn't downloading, but you want to see them, you want to see what they are, you want to see what their status is, you at least want to have some kind of linkage to them within Unify Desktop, you can definitely put them in the ignore tab. Within the ignore tab, you can shift information into the inbox if you need to. If you need to do it early, or if you know that, hey, I'm about to fulfill this order, it needs to go into the inbox, let me just shift it there. Okay, great. So that's how the ignored tab is utilized. The updates tab, this is a little bit different, and I find that this update tab, the updates tab can be very cumbersome. This is a very specialized scenario. Let's say, information is being changed, or, after a customer submits an order, you allow them to, let's say, add another item or take away an item or change their address or do anything like that. There can be different information. Let's say after Unify has downloaded that order, then we can utilize the updates and talk about the features in relation to that. Okay, so the next portion of our training, we are going to shift into item functionality.